Here we go again. It's Batman time. Hit it.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
I am Batman.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
Riddle me this, riddle me that. Who's afraid of the big black bat?
Hello, and welcome to another video here at Movie Mash. And today, I'm going to talk about Batman Forever. But before I carry on, please hit the subscribe button down there and be part of this little family we got going on here. Yeah, just there below you. Now, let's get to it. So Batman Forever is a 1995 movie starring Val Kilmer, Chris O'Donnell, Tommy Lee Jones, Jim Carrey, Nicole Kidman, and directed by Joel Schumacher. Alright, so synopsis. We got Riddler partnering up with Two-Face. He's got a device that he can render the people of Gotham mindless, take all their info, make them smarter, and take down Batman at the same time. But Batman is going to foil their plan using Boy Wonder in this one. So basically that's the story. So back in 1995, when I was quite young, this came out. And I remember there was quite a bit of buzz about this, the new direction and what's going on. And I got to see it 2 weeks before it was released. Now, today that can be somewhat normal, but back then that was unheard of. And I was super hyped, super excited, couldn't wait to see it. Went in buzzing. So as we know, Tim Burton directed the first two Batman. And of course, he was going to go ahead and do the third one, which was going to be called Batman Continues, along with Michael Keaton. But as he went for a meeting with the studio, as far as what I found out is that he was having a meeting and they all said, yeah, but wouldn't you prefer to do a smaller movie this time? And he was like, no, I'll just carry on with what I was doing, you know. And he was like, no, but you should take a break and get a smaller movie. And he turned around and said, hold on, you guys don't want me for this. And the bottom line is they didn't. You see, because of Batman Returns and how dark it was, and even though it was really successful, not as big as the first, but the studio weren't able to sell toys, couldn't get in with McDonald's, couldn't make it kid friendly, and they wanted to have merchandise with this. And I'm a bit pissed off in a way, because it felt like, as you will find out in the next movie, that merchandise and selling stuff like this was more important than how the movie would be. And we find that out in the next one, but we'll get to that. So Joel Schumacher, who directed this movie, he was not long off the making decline. And don't forget, he directed Lost Boys. And they were impressed with how he was in his box office, and he seemed to go with what they wanted. So along came Batman Forever with Joel Schumacher. Now, originally, Michael Keaton was still on board with this one. And because the story originally was going to be something like, it was going to be darker, and it was going to be like Year One. And for those who don't know, there was a comic book and a story called Year One, and it's about Batman. It's sort of a type of an origin story. It's his first year of being Batman and all the mistakes, which I think they kind of touched upon on the new one. But as I said, Michael Keaton was definitely up for doing an origin type Year One story. But what happened is Joel Schumacher didn't want to go with that. He wanted to do a sequel. He wanted to continue it, even though it's called Batman Forever, not Batman Continues. He wanted to change that. And Michael Keaton said, look, I don't want to do a sequel. I just want to do kind of a new kind of a story. And he was no. So goodbye, Michael Keaton. That was a shame. So after Michael Keaton pulled out, even though he was offered $15 million for this film, after he pulled out, the search was on for the new Batman. And at the time, biggest rising stars was people like William Baldwin, Ethan Hawke, and Val Kilmer. Now, I think one of the closest of them all was Ethan Hawke, but he actually didn't want it in the end. But Val Kilmer, and not long after doing Tombstone, which he was amazing, he was the obvious choice. And let me say about Val Kilmer, I'm a fan of his, and I have been since probably Top Gun, even before then. I loved I really like him. But the thing is that with Val Kilmer, he's a solid actor, great choice. You can't really go wrong. You know, it's a safe choice to have with him, because he's quite versatile and he can do anything. So yeah, Good actor, good choice, can't go wrong, play it safe. So when the role was offered to Val Kilmer was actually filming another movie called A Ghost in the Darkness, which is, by the way, a really good film. And if you haven't seen it, it's about lions in Africa and all that. It's really good. Now, at the time he was filming it, he was in a cave, and the cave happened to have loads of bats. And apparently Val Kilmer's quite superstitious. And because he was in the cave and he's seen all the bats and then he was offered it, he said, this is superstitious. And he took the part without even reading the script or knowing the story. But back then, I suppose that was a bit unheard of. But today, if you get offered a Batman role, yeah, say yeah. There's no fucking about, just say yeah. So when it comes to the Riddler, Robin Williams was originally offered the role. Now, after what happened in Batman 89, which if you haven't seen my video, go and check it out. He was baited to get Jack Nicholson to play the Joker, so they offered it to him, but it wasn't really, they just wanted Jack Nicholson, and he was still a bit sore about that, so he declined. So the search was on. Now, I think, as far as I know, Adam Sandler, Brad Dourif, and John Malkovich were offered the role, but at the time there was this little known actor who was hitting Hollywood by storm at the time, and it was Jim Carrey, and he wasn't long off of The Mask. And to be honest with you, I kind of feel like Jack Nicholson, he was kind of born for this. He's very similar to the 66 version, but Jim Carrey bees Jim Carrey, and he brings Jim Carrey, and he acts Jim Carrey, and this film is full Jim Carrey. Just on a side note, did you know that Michael Jackson wanted to play the Riddler in this one? So badly, he was desperate. He protested, he publicly announced it. He was desperate to play the Riddler. As much as I like MJ, I'm glad he wasn't the Riddler. I mean, it was already kind of silly enough, the movie anyway. So Two-Face. It was originally going to be Scarecrow as well, but they changed it to Two-Face. Now, with Two-Face, Billy D. Williams was already contracted and paid to be Two-Face. And he was already Two-Face or Harvey Dent in the first Batman. So it only made sense for him to come back and do this, since it is a sequel. But again, Joel Schumacher said, no, we're going in a different direction, and I want to cut away from all that. And remember, I said this, the direction. He keeps changing direction. And I'm going to bring some stuff up about this in a minute. Now, he changed direction. So we got Mel Gibson. And Mel Gibson was offered. And what did you say, Mel Gibson, when they offered it to you?
No.
So they went to Tommy Lee Jones, and Joel Schumacher had already made the client with Tommy Lee Jones, so they had a working relationship. And you know what? He's a good actor in general, so you can't go wrong with him, right? So Robin, we're going to bring Boy Wonder into this movie. And obviously, for people who don't know, Marlon Wayans was originally contracted, like Billy D. Williams, and paid to be in this movie. But again, like Joel Schumacher said, no, we're going in a different direction, and that didn't happen. So the search was on for Robin. Now, famously, Leonardo DiCaprio was originally approached about this, and he had meetings with Joel Schumacher, but in the end he felt like this film wasn't for him. It wasn't what he wanted at this particular time, so he declined. So the search was still on for Boy Wonder, and they went through a number of actors. Matt Damon, they went through Mark Wahlberg, and Christian Bale. He actually went for it as well, but he didn't get it. Eventually they went to Chris O'Donnell, and Chris O'Donnell hadn't long, a couple of years before, he impressed people with his Scent of a Woman, and he seemed to be the best looking at the time according to the studio for the ladies, so Chris O'Donnell got it. So Batman's love interest, played by Nicole Kidman as Dr. Chase Meridian, she wasn't the studio's first choice. They didn't really want her, didn't find her sexy enough. Even though Joel Schumacher really wanted her, and he had to fight real hard to get her in it. Now, they wanted Sandra Bullock or Robin Wright, but eventually, as we know, we got Nicole Kidman, and I think she did the scene where she was on the rooftop with Batman, and the studio went, nope, she's sexy, and believe me, she is. The only problem I will say about her character in this, Nicole Kidman is a great actress. In fact, she's one of my favorites. I mean, she is such a good actress. But on this film, maybe I think she had fun with it. But on this film, it was more like, oh, Batman. The whole film, there was no real depth to it. It was just, oh, Batman. Oh, Bruce, I don't know who to, oh, you know what? But you know what? She did what she did. It was a good enough. You know what? I'm not going to moan. Debbie Marsden and Drew Barrymore was Two-Face's girls. They were like for his duality, for his light and his dark side. It was just a bit of fun. They looked like they had fun doing it, and they looked really hot anyway. I couldn't choose between them. Now, Pat Hingle returned as Commissioner Gordon. As we all know, he was Commissioner Gordon in the first two. But like the first two, he wasn't really given much to do. Instead of saying, "Go Batman," or "Well done Batman," or "Thanks for saving the day Batman," you know, that's all he was doing. Felt more like the 60s version, but you know what? I liked, he's a good actor as well. And I saw him recently in a film, Hang 'em High. He's actually he's a good actor. Shame he didn't have much to do, but you know what? At least he was in it. Now, we have Michael Gough playing Alfred. Again, why am I doing that? We got Michael Gough playing Alfred in this one again. And I feel like he has a little bit more to do in this. Only a little. He seems to be looking after Robin a lot. There's a lot going on with him and Robin, trying to, you know, stop him from finding the Batcave. And yeah, just a slightly more. But Michael Gough, again, he's an accomplished actor. He's a really good guy. And it's a shame he died. But you know what? I'm glad he was in it. And I think he was a great Alfred. So on this, we have a few cameos here, just to mention. We've got Bob Kane's wife, the co-creator of Batman, Elizabeth Sanders. We have En Vogue, the pop group who was big at that time. And we have, and blink if you miss him, Jon Favreau, yeah, the director of Iron Man. But I mean it, if you blink, you'd miss him, but he's in it. Now, Batman Forever is a big departure from the first two movies. I mean, it is virtually like another movie. And even though it's supposed to be some kind of a sequel, and I'll get to that again in a second, but it's full of bright lit neon nights. It's got great cinematography. It's well shot. It's just, you know what? I really like how it looks. It's bold. It's bang in your face. I still prefer the first two, but I really like this in a separate way. I mean, they're a completely different look about them. But if you look at the set designs and all that, there's a lot of work that's gone into this. Now, my opinion, and I'm going to say this again later on, but I feel like this is like an updated version of the 60s show. And but you know what? The 60s show was massive. It's still a lot of fun. It was wacky. It was crazy. And this is like the 60s version. And I wonder if this came out before the first two Batman, would it have been as big as the first one? And even though this was big, I'm just saying this to me was very similar, like an updated version of the 60s show. And I love the 60s show. I mean, like, there's a lot of fun to be had with that. Now, the costumes, Batman costume, Robin costume and all that, they're very similar. I will have to say Batman's costume, the first costume he wears mostly, it's very similar to Tim Burton's version, apart from one small obvious thing. The bat nipples, yes, which became notorious about Batman and Robin. Which, you know what, at the time I didn't notice, but, and you know what, I still don't care. But the suits are very similar. I like how they look. They're a great suit. You know what? Now, Jim Carrey, his Riddler costume looks very similar to the 60s. Maybe a bit brighter. The leotard, you know what, as we see how a lot of people are moaning about today's Riddler in the new Robert Pattinson's Batman, which didn't bother me, it just fit the time. But you know what, I really like his costume in this one, and I think it's great. And you know what, great. Now, when it comes to Two-Face's costume, I don't like it. But I suppose 1990s had the split duality, was just a suit in two halves. But you know what, that's just my opinion. Now, if you didn't notice, the Batmobile is different in this one. Again, Joel Schumacher wanted to go in a different direction, and we got the bright neon light Batmobile. Now, I'm not a fan of this one. Now, I don't hate it. I'm just not a fan of it. It looks fragile compared to the beast that was in the first one. I mean, it's probably my favorite, the first one. Yeah, I would say the first one's my favourite Batmobile, but this one, it's all right. It suited the film, but let me get this right. Batman works in the shadows. You know, the Dark Knight, you know, stealth. That's not quite stealthy, is it? And it's got a big wing hanging off with that shaking half the time. I mean, it was more for style. Again, he wanted to go a different direction. I'm not going to moan. It just goes with the film. So Danny Elfman's score wasn't brought back for this one. Again, different direction. We're going with Elliot Goldenall. Now, I was really pissed off at the time with not having Danny Elfman's score backing, because I loved that. It's iconic. But we got Elliot Goldenall. Now, when I first heard that score, I remember thinking it sounds more like a spoof, something that should be on a spoof movie, or something like Naked Gun that was out around then, you know. But it grew on me, and today I have to say, you know what? It is really good. It is. It fits it. It's not as good as Danny Elfman's, but I'm telling you, I personally think this is a really good one, and I'm not going to moan. I bought it. When it comes to the second musical soundtrack, we have famous bands in this one. Now, I have to point out that I think this album is one of the best movie albums out there. Not my favorite, but one of the best. We've got U2 with Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me, and Seal with Kiss from a Rose. I mean, they're great. We also have other bands like In Excess, which is Michael Hutchinson. We have Method Man, and we have Massive Attack. It is a great album, and if you haven't heard it, really check it out. Just on another note, I want to say is Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me by U2 was what is the first CD that I ever bought. I mean, I've bought millions since, and I ain't got half of them still. But it was the first CD I ever bought as a young lad. And I still have it today, and it's away somewhere. But yeah, I still have it today, and I still love that song. Now, this was a big, massive success in 1995. It was actually the biggest film of the year. It made $336 million worldwide. Now, it not as much as the first Batman 89, which was like 416 million. But a hell of a lot more than the previous Batman Returns, which was like 266 million. Now, again, the reason why that didn't do so well is because it wasn't quite kid friendly. So, you know, you have to give it a break. But as I said, this was a massive hit, and it goes without saying, we're going to make a sequel, right? Now, something I don't normally bring up on my reviews, and I probably should mention it sometimes, is that there was a video game that came out with this movie, Batman Forever. I don't remember playing the first couple of video games, sort of Batman 89 and Returns, but I played this one, and it came out on the Sega Mega Drive, which in the UK is called Mega Drive, US Genesis, don't know why, but it also was on the Super Nintendo, and we got I think it was on Game Boy. Now, I played it on the Mega Drive, and it wasn't a bad game. I remember enjoying it. It wasn't like terrible. I remember though it was quite clunky, and the controls weren't that easy to use. But again, it wasn't bad. But there were similar games out there that was a lot better than this, and the mechanics of the game was a bit tough. But again, it looked all right for the time. It wasn't a bad, and it sold a lot. And so, you know what? I'm not going to moan. Liked it enough. Let's talk about the alternative cut. There is a different cut to this movie. It's 3 hours long, nearly 3 hours long. Now, it was going to be a lot darker and moodier. Not as dark as the first two, but we were going to dive into the duality of Bruce and Batman, the psychology of it all. And we were going to see more, and it was going to be darker. It was going to have a different opening. It was going to have a giant bat. But the studio thought, too dark. But today, there is a lot of talk since Joel Schumacher died in 2020, which is a shame. It won't have his stamp on it as well, which would be a shame. But there's a lot of talks about it, and you know what? It's not just little rumours. There's a lot of hype about this. Now, I don't know if it will happen or not. And there was a time when I would have said, but after the Zack Snyder cut, who changed the game, I actually think it could possibly happen. And I am 100% up for it, because I'd love to see another version of a film that I really like, especially a Batman movie, especially Joel Schumacher and Val Kilmer. It would be so good. So let's just keep our fingers crossed and see what happens. But for now, we'll wait. So where are the actors today? Well, Val Kilmer, he had a great career. He's one of my favourites. I really like him, but unfortunately he ended up with throat cancer. And, you know, it's a shame, but he made a documentary recently, And if you haven't seen it, go and check it out. It's called Val. It's all about his life and films and footage that he made, and it's such a good thing. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And if you're not a fan, still check it out. It's really good. Now, Tommy Lee Jones. Tommy Lee Jones was a seasoned actor. He'd been around the block. He had steady work before it, and he's carried on after. He had big success with Men in Black and 2 and 3. Also, just on a side note, as much as he hated, and he made it clear to everyone that he hated being on making the superhero movie, he ended up on Captain America as a small role. But you know what? I like the actor. Now, when it comes to Jim Carrey, I really like Jim Carrey. I mean, he's had his ups and downs over the years. Like, you know, he's been up and he's been down. He's had a few hits and a few misses. I've always liked him. And he's got a big film coming out soon, Sonic 2, which he's playing the villain. And you know what? It's worth checking out. I hope it's going to be worth checking out, I should say. The first one was worth checking out. And go and watch it. Now, Nicole Kidman, she's going from strength to strength to strength. She was on a thing recently I watched, Meet the Ricardos. I mean, she was already a great actress beforehand. But if you watch Meet the Ricardos, and it's not something that I would find interesting, she was really good. It's actually really good. Go and check it out. Now, when it comes to Chris O'Donnell, unfortunately for him, after the next one, which I will talk more about when I do the next Batman and Robin, his career didn't take off. Like, you know what? He's not a bad actor. I can't see why not. But you know what? We'll talk about more on the next one. But he had a few roles here. I think he was on a TV show for a while. But you know what? I'll talk about more later. Now, I want to talk about the chaos that was on this film. So we got Tommy Lee Jones, who really kind of didn't want to play Two-Face originally. But because his son was a big Batman fan and pushed, please, Dad, please, so he went and made it. He clearly did not like Jim Carrey. And Jim Carrey has told everyone that he just did not like him. He actually went up to him and told him, I do not like you. And he goes, I cannot famously sanction your buffoonery. And you know what? Fuck him.
Hey Tommy, how you doing? Like that, and the blood just drained from his face. And he started shaking, and he got up and he went like this. He must have been in mid-kill me fantasy or something like that. He was like like this, and he went like to hug me, and he said, I hate you. I really, and I said, gee man, what's the problem? And I pulled up a chair, which probably wasn't smart. And he said, I cannot sanction your buffoonery.
I mean, Jim Carrey was the delight in the show of the party, mate. I don't know what your problem is. We got Val Kilmer, who is supposed to be notoriously hard to work with. And Jim Carrey is hard to deal with. So you got Jim Carrey crazy running around. We got Tommy Lee Jones moaning about everything. And we got Val Kilmer being stubborn about everything. I feel sorry for Joel Schumacher, and he said about actors, and I think it was meant more at Tommy Lee Jones, but he said something like, you know what, he's sick of working with these overpaid, overprivileged actors that he hopes he'll never work with them again. Now, as I said before about different direction, and I said I'll point out, this is what I wanted to point out, which kind of makes no sense to me, but I'm going to say it. So, Joel Schumacher, throughout everything I said, everything he wanted to do was a different direction, right? But also it being a sequel, which doesn't kind of fit in, because originally it was going to be Year One with Michael Keaton. But he wanted to do a sequel. So why didn't you just do Year One, you know, and keep it the way it looks, but just do Year One? I don't understand why you wanted to make a sequel instead of a reboot, but you wanted to go in a different direction as well. So is it a sequel or is it not a sequel? It is a sequel, not a sequel. So it makes sense of that. I don't understand. Not that I actually like Joel Schumacher as a director. I just couldn't understand is he wants to go make a sequel, but he wants it all in a different direction when originally they were going to go with Year One with Michael Keaton. But you know what? It is what it is, and we got what we got. Now, when it comes to negatives, I don't have many, to be honest with you, because I know what the film is. I know what I wanted. But I will say is that I would say that Tommy Lee Jones, his character of Two-Face, was a bit flat for me. I didn't like it. He was forgettable. You could nearly take him out of it and it wouldn't have mattered, you know, to be honest. He wasn't memorable. I didn't like how he looked. I didn't like how his character was. And I do like the actor. I just didn't like any of it. I will say this. There was a part, you know, his face was all purple. Half his face was purple. Apparently that was supposed to be flesh and blood instead of purple. But again, it wasn't kid friendly. But I don't think that would have changed the fact of his character. It felt like someone said to him, right, you're going to play this. Watch Jack Nicholson in the first Batman and try and mimic that. And I feel that's what he did. You know what? He did his best. He did what he did. But it's just for me, I would have taken it out or I would have changed it. It would have been nice to see Billy D. Williams, but we'll never know. So my final thoughts on the film. All in all, I really like this movie. Yeah, I don't know, is it nostalgia or what? But there's a lot of effort went into this. We got great lights, great cinematography. The story was a bit bland, but you know what? It's a Batman movie. It's like the 60s. I mean, what do you expect? We have larger-than-life characters. We have great characters. We have great actors. It looks great. It is stunning. It's a sit-back popcorn movie. And you should sit back and enjoy it and don't take it too seriously. And don't moan about it's not being the first two. And if you want to moan, wait till the next one. But anyway, what did you think of Batman Forever? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Is it the worst? Do you wish Michael Keaton was in it or not? Let me know in the comments below. And please like and subscribe. But for now, and until next time.